Hey, good morning, friends. Today is Thursday, May the 22nd, 2025, and the time now is 7:30 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about the meeting between Donald Trump and the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, which took place yesterday, May the 21st, 2025. I want to provide a brief comment, make a brief statement about what I think the meeting between the two implies, or what I think the meeting basically reflects in terms of the historical and in terms of current event, and what I think is happening within the minds of Donald Trump, members of his administration, and what could be brewing under the surface for the rest of the world. Now, friends, you are watching the playlist series, The Trends and Headlines in Geopolitics, and this is episode 36. Once again, my friends, you are watching the playlist series, The Trends and Headlines in Geopolitics, and this is episode 36. So, friends, yesterday marked a very interesting day in geopolitics. And this, my friends, is especially so because of the meeting in the White House that happened between the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the President of the United States, Donald Trump. What I think it implies for Africa, the African people on the continent of Africa, and African diaspora. Since Trump became president during his first term, he had been attacking South Africa and he had been talking about ongoing, quote unquote, according to Donald Trump, and how members of his administration and those who subscribe to Trumpism, how they see it. And upon coming back into the presidency for his second term, he had been accusing South Africa, okay, or the South African government of white genocides and also of taking land from white people in South Africa. Now, since Donald Trump came into power for his second term, he had been accusing South Africa once again of genocide against white South Africans or Afrikaners, and his friend Elon Musk has also been echoing such sentiment, which is untrue. There isn't any white genocide going on in Africa. South Africans are saying it, Africans are saying it, American media is saying it, and members of the American government or prominent Americans are saying it. Nothing of that sort is happening. Yes, South Africa is experiencing crime increase and crime crisis, as many have put it. South Africa is on the southern coast of Africa. And South Africa being in the neighborhood of Africa, a continent that has been ravaged for how many centuries now. Africa has seen many, many civil wars since the days of decolonization. And Africa continues to see civil wars and destabilization. As a result of this, guns and weapons are flowing into South Africa. When you also take into consideration of poverty in South Africa, it also shed a light and it makes sense. So friends, it is also confirmed by those who are observers and commentators on South African affairs, geopolitics and domestic, that the overwhelming majority of those who are victim of crime in South Africa are black. Now, friends, blacks makes up about 80% or so of the population in South Africa, and whites makes up about 7 to 8 to 9% of the population, depending on the source. However, white South Africans are said to own at least 79 to 80% of the country's land and wealth, and blacks the overwhelming majority of about 46 or so million people out of 60 or 60 something million people are overwhelmingly disadvantaged. Now, with all this, you are seeing a crime crisis in the country. However, Donald Trump has run away with that, and he had been accusing South Africa of white genocide, of genociding the white South Africans. In recent times, Trump declared economic slash trade slash tariff war against the rest of the world, about 180 countries or so. And South Africa is one of those countries that were heavily hit with tariff. Now, South African president is said to have called Donald Trump to have a meeting in the United States, in the White House, to basically try to remedy the issue, to reset the relationship between the United States and South Africa, and also to ensure Donald Trump and the U.S. government that there is no genocide on white people going on in South Africa. My question here is, why? Why is it that governments in the world, and in this case, South African government, the president of South Africa, why is it that he called a meeting with Donald Trump, especially in the White House? Why is it that he came to the United States, to the White House, to meet with Donald Trump? I think doing that give Donald Trump advantage. One, you are doing it in the White House. Donald Trump is going to try to insult you. And Donald Trump don't give a damn about the United States. The thing here is, it seems as if the United States is divided along political lines. 50% or so Democrats and liberal, and those who are leaning Democrats and liberal, and 50% or so of Republicans and those who are leaning Republicans. Now the Trumpers are also within the Republican sphere. Donald Trump doesn't care about the other 50% of Americans. What he is going to do is just say and do whatever, and it resonates with his supporters. That's all he is doing. My thing is, I do believe leaders in government, or in this case, African leaders most especially, should not be dignifying Donald Trump. And I feel like that was a mistake that Cyril Ramaphosa made. Now, my friends, I do apologize for deviating. What I am supposed to be focusing on is the meeting between Donald Trump and Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa about the whole nonsense of white genocide. Once again, it is confirmed by many prominent people in our international community that there isn't any form of white genocide going on. Now, friends, there are many who are calling the meeting an ambush by Donald Trump on the president of South Africa, because it seems that prior to the meeting, the setup has already been done. There was a huge, gigantic TV monitor in the meeting room. And also, this is because Donald Trump's team had also printed countless numbers of news headlines, okay? Pictures of quote-unquote dead South Africans, which during the meeting Donald Trump showed. Now, friends, I have to be honest here. The president of South Africa was very calm, collected, and respectful. He composed himself well. But I think that is not enough to compose yourself. Either you do not engage with Donald Trump or you engage with him. If he interrupts you, interrupt him as well. If he yell at you, yell at him as well. Because what Donald Trump, I think, is preying on is that members of the international community will go and meet him in the White House. They will be very respected and calm and collected, but he is going to yell and insult, and he looked good. It is interesting as well, at some point he referred to the South African president, Ramaphosa, saying that you are loved little, and I too, I am loved a little bit. At some point, I am loved here and hated here. I'm just paraphrasing, but I don't remember exactly the word. But he referred to South African president saying, you are little love. I think that I myself, I am little love in some circumstances. I think it is irrelevant. I think what Donald Trump was saying to the South African president, Ramaphosa, is fuck you. Nobody care about you. Trump will make an insult and try to put it on himself to try to make it seem as if he is basically creating a balance. But that is not the point. What Donald Trump supporters are saying is Trump saying, fuck you. Even though he might have redirected the fuck you to himself. But what they are saying is him saying, fuck you, the guest. So it is interesting. I feel like Ramaphosa should have known better to not dignify Donald Trump. Perhaps that is what Burkina Faso's President Traore did, because he is said to have been invited by Donald Trump and he refused to come to the United States, to travel to the United States. Kudos to him. But to be honest, South African president, I feel like he did a great job as well. Perhaps it was a strategy. Be calm, be cool, be collected. Let Donald Trump embarrass himself. It seems that as of now, what Donald Trump needs to be referred to is the white savior in chief. Donald Trump, his behavior and what he is saying, if people refuse to refer to him as a white supremacist, I think it is wrong. The world needs to be very concerned because Donald Trump is exemplifying a white supremacist tendency that could go anywhere in the future. Yes, the United States is said to be dwindling in terms of its influence, but the United States is dangerous and it seems to become more dangerous, especially given its political, its economic, and its military power. Donald Trump is exhibiting a very racist ideology, tendency, behavior, activity to many members of the non white world. Now, white people are not being genocided in South Africa. Apartheid ended, quote unquote. They basically kept their wealth. South Africans did not go for retribution. Despite all the crimes that white had committed against blacks in South Africa, they got away with it. They continued to live with their wealth in South Africa. By pushing this genocide narrative, Donald Trump could actually be igniting tension in South Africa and around the world for many blacks who might have won payback. It is interesting that as Donald Trump continued to spill the beans, to spew the whole idea, the nonsense about white genocide, he asked that the monitor be directed to, and he played basically a rally of a prominent South African politician and activist, Julius Malema, at an event, okay, a rally, political rally, where he was singing the popular South African revolutionary song, Kill the Boer, okay? The whole idea of kill the oppressors or whatever. And Donald Trump basically used that. Now, it is very interesting. Let me take a pause here. Recently, I watched an interview of a South African, I think, professor demanding Malema stop or that South African black stop singing that song. That song could be used by many white agitators and those who are spilling the whole idea of white genocide. They could use that song and the rally against Malema and against South Africa to say, see, this is what happening. To that point, I feel like this professor, who is also a white Afrikaner, was right. But at the same time, it is a historical song. Demanding Malema stop or that South African black stop singing that song, basically to an extent, it seems that it is also a wiping away of or wiping out of history. The truth is that song is not igniting a genocide or attack on white people. It is African pride. It is something that Africans, South Africans have been singing to basically show, demonstrate their resistance, that they are going to fight back. But in this case, it seems to have worked for the Trumpers because Donald Trump played the rally, the clips kept rolling, and he basically stressed, he called Malema an idiot and asked South African President Ramaphosa, why don't you arrest that guy? First of all, Malema had been apprehended many times, or he had also been disciplined for some of the comments that he made or had made in the South African parliament. However, Malema is not or hasn't been pushing violence. What Malema is doing, he is the radicalism, African radicalism at the extreme. Malema is Donald Trump, but without the White House in South Africa. Malema is a force that has to exist as long as white supremacy and some of the nonsense that are going on against Africans exist. Malema demonstrates the mindset of many Africans today who want not necessarily payback, but want to remedy the past, not in a brutal way. Attacking Malema in the manner in which Donald Trump suggested at the meeting, whether calling Malema an idiot or asking South African president, why don't you arrest him? It's basically saying, why don't you arrest all of Africa? The angry Africans that are saying enough is enough. Now, friends, Let's assume that Ramaphosa is stupid enough to arrest Julius Malema. Right there, I can predict a civil war in South Africa, which in this case, it then leads to white South African Afrikaner who want to split South Africa to use it as an advantage, okay, to split South Africa. As much as many are calling out South African government wrongly and accusing South Africa for genociding or of genociding whites, as much as that is a bad thing, I believe and it seems that many white South Africans and Afrikaners who are agitating, they are not agitating because there is actually a white genocide going on in South Africa. No, it is not the case. They are agitating because they want to split South Africa. They want Western Cape to become an independent South Africa for white Afrikaners. That's what they want. And to an extent, it seems that it is backfiring against many Afrikaners. Not only that Donald Trump has been pushing the narrative of white genocide in South Africa, but to the point where now he's trying to resettle white South Africans. The truth is Afrikaners and white South Africans are not trying to be refugees elsewhere or in the United States. Many of these guys are enjoying whatever economic advantage that they have in South Africa. Relocating and restarting all over as a refugee, I believe, is a reality that they do not want to experience. But once again, guys, Donald Trump continued to push the white genocide narrative. There are those who are asking and who are saying that it is very interesting that Donald Trump is pushing the white genocide narrative in South Africa. However, he is saying nothing about the genocide that is going on in Gaza, in which the Palestinians are being genocided in Gaza. He is doing nothing about it. To an extent, he himself continued to help. He's continued to supply Israel with bombs. And recently, he basically insisted to turn Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, relocating the Palestinians and making the Gaza Strip into a resort. And those who are basically asking that question or accusing Donald Trump of being a hypocrite, they do have plausible argument in this case. In the meeting, once again, Donald Trump went through sheets of printed faces and headlines of the supposedly or so-called victims, white victims of the white genocide in South Africa, which once again, it has been proven to be false. Donald Trump continued to vent, to go through this, okay, and continue to push the narrative of white genocide. To an extent, Donald Trump is appearing to look childish. Daily, he's continued to make himself look foolish. And this, friends, as much as it continues to work for the Trumpers to make Donald Trump look good and to make the white supremacists happy, in the long term, it's going to have a blowback effect for Donald Trump and for his supporters. Because what this could do, it basically could radicalize South Africa and Africa as well. Now, when Donald Trump continued to push this white genocide and taking into consideration of what he had done, restricting and suspending migration, okay, immigration from the non-white world, the global south, while taking in only white South Africa, it's an alarm that continues to ring in my ear, okay, and in my mind and in my head. I think the entire world needs to be very careful and concerned and pay attention. There is no doubt that Donald Trump is a racist white supremacist with power. The United States is much powerful than Nazi Germany was. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is Adolf Hitler or that the United States is Nazi Germany. But given the sentiment that is coming from Donald Trump and coming out of his movement, the world needs to be very careful because we don't know how far this could go. And with the power and the might economically, politically, militarily of the United States, giving the United States subjugation of Europe, of the left in Europe, given the current inability of the global south, this could become ugly in the future. I'm not saying it is a definite, but I'm just saying what if. But once again, the South African president was cool, calm, and collected. But at the same time, I feel like him being humble, cool, calm, and collected, he was taken advantage of by Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump showed the video, which it is interesting because the monitor was already there, this was an ambush to an extent because they were ready to do what they did. You could see the South African president and members of the South African delegation. They were not happy because this was insulting. Okay, it was insulting. But I feel like perhaps it's a lesson that they and any member of the government of the Global South or of Africa, be very careful. Do not dignify Donald Trump. Do not go meet him in the White House. Let him come and meet you, or you arrange that you two meet in a neutral country. Do not give Donald Trump prominence in this case. Do not put him in a position where he is able to take advantage of you. I feel like that is the mistake that Cyril Ramaphosa and the South African government and delegation made. And in this case, Donald Trump make himself look bad, he make himself look good, and he make himself look stupid at the same time. But once again, there isn't any white genocide going on in South Africa. And even South African whites are saying it. And this is basically turning off many South Africans and South African whites. Now, before I end, friends, one thing I want to stress here. Elon Musk was in the meeting. Once again, Elon Musk was in the meeting. Many in the world and in the United States do have some kind of negative or controversial opinion of Elon Musk. However, I believe we need to stress it that Elon Musk hates South Africa, or Elon Musk hates the government of South Africa. Elon Musk is a traitor to his country. Elon Musk was in that meeting where his country was disrespected, and he was there basically supporting it all. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is supposed to have been talking with the South African president and government or delegation to basically install Starlink system in South Africa. I feel like that is the worst thing that South Africa and Africa will ever do, to allow Starlink in South Africa or Africa. You already know that Elon Musk is the enemy of South Africa. You do not want to implant Elon Musk's system in that country. South Africa must be very careful. Africa must be careful. But it is painful. It was painful to watch seeing Elon Musk doing to his country what he did. And friends, what he did and represented at the meeting shows that many whites in the world and white South Africans do believe in superiority over blacks and others. And this is why many are angry or continue to become angry with the fact that apartheid, quote unquote, was defeated and blacks came to power in South Africa. The thing here is, you kick out of the system the vast majority of your population. When they come into power, now you're crying foul. When the changes occurred, when apartheid was finally kicked out of the door, whites were never forced to relinquish what they have. They were never forced to redistribute wealth. They were never attacked. But you left a system, a crippled system, in a continent that continued to struggle from you guys' attack. And now you continue to call foul and accuse the South African government of inability when you give nothing to the government to work with other than just power. It is wrong. But once again, I am going to say that South African government and president should not have had this meeting and should not have dignified Donald Trump. And I do hope that countries around the world and leaders do not dignify Donald Trump and put Donald Trump in a situation where Donald Trump has to insult them, their people, and their country. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends, but most especially and most importantly, friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace.